That was William Clarke, his solo from Lollipop Mama. I've had the really good fortune to hear the great Chicago harmonica players like Little Walter, Junior Wells, Big Walter Horton, James Cotton, and others playing live in the clubs of Chicago. Those days are gone, and I'd kind of given up hope of ever hearing a new voice on amplified blues harp again in my lifetime. Then came William Clarke. Technically, Clarke is a master of both the small Hohner marine band harmonicas that we all know, as well as the large chromatics. In fact, he takes blues on the chromatic up to and well beyond where Little Walter left it many years ago. But far more important than the technique is the music. Clarke plays straight-ahead blues that is music to my ears, and it rocks. William Clarke was born March 29th of 1951 in South Central LA, and he became turned on to blues during the 1960s. Oddly enough, by hearing covers of blues tunes by groups like the Rolling Stones. Sound familiar? Does to me. Although he had played some guitar and drums, Clarke started playing the harmonica in 1967. He states that his main early influences, and you can hear them, were Big Walter Horton, James Cotton, Junior Wells, and Sonny Boy Williamson II. Then in mid-1968, Clarke began listening to jazz organists, such as Jack McDuff, Jimmy McGriff, Shirley Scott, and Richard Groove Holmes. And I quote from Clarke here, "This had a huge influence on my playing," says Clarke. Along with jazz saxophonists Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Gene Ammons, Lynn Hope, and Willis Jackson, the combination of listening and absorbing the grooves of tenor sax-led organ trios had an everlasting effect on my direction in music. For my style, I incorporated the hardcore attitude and tone of the classic Chicago harmonica players, along with the swinging and highly rhythmic grooves of the organ trios, and to this I add my style and ideas, and you have the William Clarke sound." End quote. By the middle of 1969, Clarke was spending a lot of time in the Los Angeles ghetto clubs in South Central LA. It was there that he met T-Bone Walker, Pee Wee Creighton, Shaky Jake Harris, Big Joe Turner, Arning Board Sam, J.D. Nicholson, and George Harmonica Smith. And it was Smith who would later become his greatest influence on the chromatic harp. Clarke would go from one club until it closed at 2 a.m., then switch to an after-hours club from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., and then go to jam sessions that would last until 11 in the morning, and still hold down a day job. Clarke spent 20 years working as a machinist and family man before launching his blues career. Then Clarke began to see and listen more to George Harmonica Smith. Smith was a veteran of the Muddy Waters Band, and Clarke says, and I quote, "To me, George was bigger than life. I was always afraid to start up a conversation with him, not because I thought he was mean, but because I thought of him like a god on the harmonica." Around 1967, they became friends and started performing together. They worked together until Smith passed away in 1983. Clarke was George Smith's protege, and he became the godfather to Clarke's son Willie. Smith did. And Clarke says this, "George and me were very close friends, and in a lot of ways he was like a father to me." Let's listen now to an excerpt of the song Drinking by Myself, with William Clarke singing and playing the traditional Marine band harmonica. It will get us started.
Sometime, somewhere, baby, darling, when you can hear my plea, sometime, somewhere, baby, darling, when you can hear my plea, then my door be wide open, sweetheart. So darling, won't you please come on home to me?
Clarke writes most of his own songs, and many of them are real ear catchers. He has a working class background, and songs like Gambling for My Bread and Pawn Shop Bound are right on the money. They're just great tunes. In my opinion, William Clarke, along with Big Walter Horton and Paul Butterfield, had an almost impeccable sense of which notes to play. There are a lot of players out there, white and black, that basically play what's on the records of the great Chicago artists. There's nothing wrong with this, but there's no news there either. Clarke is an original. Having heard him play live a number of times, I can testify that here is the real thing. He is an extension of the classic Chicago-style amplified harp tradition into the present. Just listen to those first two Alligator albums. It's all on the CDs. Harmonica recording artist Charlie Musselwhite says that Clarke is his favorite living harp player, no doubt about it. I am in total agreement with Musselwhite. And while most great players are either dead or on the decline, Clarke was still cooking, playing some 200 gigs a year. I liked him so much that I paid for a special concert by Clarke in the small town where I live here in Michigan, and I interviewed him at the same time. It was clear that he was probably a heavy drinker. He lived hard, and it took its toll. William Clarke collapsed on stage in March of 1996 in Indianapolis. He was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, but recovered, pulled himself together, gave up drinking, and was back on the road a few months later. But sadly, he again collapsed in Fresno, California, and went to the hospital with a bleeding ulcer. He died on the operating table the next day, November 2nd, 1996. When I heard the news, I was just sick inside. Here is one of Clarke's best-loved numbers, Pawn Shop Bound. We're going to hear almost the whole tune.
Cause I'm pawn shop bound. I'm gonna leave here walking party cause I'm pawn shop bound. I need some money in my pocket cause I feel like I'm sinking down. Mr. Pawn and Broker, I need to talk with you. Pawn and Broker, I need to talk with you. I'll have a hard time every time my little rent come due. I'm gonna pawn my watch, turn around and pawn my ring. I'm gonna pawn my stereo, my TV and my ring. To put the food on my table, baby, I'm gonna pawn everything.
Clarke an original? First of all, in my opinion, he's paid his dues to the past. He has mastered Little Walter-style harmonica and can swing it at least as well as Little Walter ever did. He has also captured the insistence and the piercing sound of a Sonny Boy 2 to perfection, and it's clear to me that he has studied Big Walter Horton. Clarke has the overpowering straight-ahead push of a James Cotton and also the magic chromatic touch of George Harmonica Smith. And the best part is that he uses all of these influences in moderation and with impeccable taste. That gets him in the door of my respect. In my opinion, Clarke no longer owes anything to anyone. And I happen to share with William Clarke his love for the brilliance of the Hammond organ trios with guitar and funky sax, the music that's called original funk or soul jazz. In my opinion, there's nothing on the planet like jazz organ trios. Did I mention that Clarke swings? Well, he does, and better than anyone I have ever heard on the harmonica. This is dancing music as it should be. Aside from being a master of the harmonica, William Clarke writes and sings great songs. Songs not about the black experience, but blue-collar songs like Gamblin' for My Bread and Pawn Shop Bound. And while the records tell his story, I must say this. Having heard Clarke live a number of times, I can tell you he is an incredibly exciting star to see in person. The singing and harmonica playing are just perfect, of course, but the sheer drive and force of his sound fills the room with excitement. It's electrifying. William Clarke learned Chicago blues until he could play his own experience, and then he did just that. There are few white players who have successfully learned the Chicago-style blues, paid their dues to that great music, and then consciously transferred their skill to their own lives in their own tradition. William Clarke is one. Harmonica player Paul Butterfield came close.
Fingers crossed, baby. Well, then I'm hoping for the best. Got my fingers crossed, baby. Well, then I'm hoping for the best. Yes, I'm gambling on my future, my livelihood, and all the rest. Got my back against the wall. I got to gamble for my bread. Got my back against the wall. I got to gamble for my bread. Soon my journey will be over. Then I could ease my way ahead. Well, Gina need clothes, Willie needs shoes. I have a hard time when my rent comes due. I got my back against the wall. I got to gamble for my bread. Well, on a $90 paycheck, it's hard to keep my family fed.
I want to close with a William Clarke tune called Look Into the Future with some fine harmonica playing. See you next time.
future, 'cause the one thing you got to know. Yes, I'm looking to the future, 'cause the one thing you got to know. The blues is my companion, baby, and I can't tell everywhere I go.